Hello everyone. As per popular demand, today I want to talk about I Hate You, a Super Mario World creepypasta written by the well-known author Slimebeast. It was originally posted on December 10th, 2012, to the Insidious Bog Leech forums, an old website dedicated to internet horror. This one is a little different from Coronation Day or the Mario creepypasta, because while those were both ROM hacks that spawned stories and theories around them after the fact, this one originated as a story, and fans of the story made games and ROM hacks based on it later on. But let's get into it. The story begins with an unusual but interesting hook in which the author firmly clarifies that this is not a story about a haunted game that's going to break the fourth wall or start doing impossible, supernatural things, but instead is simply about a hidden level he found in the game. A level he believes Nintendo always meant for someone out there to find. He goes on to explain a bit about his backstory. He received his first computer in 1996 as a birthday present, and soon after became addicted to piracy. In particular, he was obsessed with Super Mario World. He downloaded a ROM and found himself playing it over and over again. For more than 10 years, his favorite time-wasting hobby was speeding through the game, saying that there was something comforting about it, and that he must have beaten it thousands of times. It stopped being comforting, however, when the game seemed to change. One day, while he was playing the sunken ship level toward the end of the game, he found that the pipe that normally leads out of the area was blocked by a ghost enemy, also known as a boo. The author knew from years of playing the game that there should not be a boo there at all, but there were other details that made this even weirder. The boo was missing its eyes, causing it to appear blind. And normally in Mario games, the boos will chase after you when you face away from them, but this one made no reaction to the player at all, which almost makes sense in a way. If this one's blind, then how could it possibly know whether or not you were looking at it? The boo may have been blocking the pipe, but something else was new as well. Nearby, there was a key and a keyhole, allowing the player to complete the level using an alternate exit. The author comments that all of this made him feel like he was playing a bad ROM hack, but since he knew he loaded the same ROM file that he's always used, this was impossible. He then considers the possibility that he played the game so much that the ROM file somehow became corrupted from overuse. He used the key on the keyhole to get the secret exit, and a new path opened on the overworld, resembling a whirlpool. When he moved over the new level tile, several weird things happened. The cave entrance to the Valley of Bowser changed to look as though it was bleeding from the eyes, and the new level had the name, Oh God, No. The author tried to rationalize this by pointing out that the original game's special zone has level names with a somewhat similar tone to them, such as Outrageous and Awesome, so maybe this was an unused name from that world. But what he had a harder time explaining was the shocked and fearful expression that appeared on Mario's face. He entered the level and found himself entering what initially looked to be an underwater castle. After the starting animation ended, the area simply looked to be a long, cramped hallway. Still unsure of whether or not this was some sort of glitch, the author ran along the hallway for what felt like 10 to 20 minutes, curious to see what would happen next. Eventually, a few more of the blind boos appeared on the dark top half of the screen, until that area was eventually littered with them. Just like the first one, they still made no move to chase Mario, but the author did notice that they seemed to shudder slightly whenever he jumped, as though the ghosts heard the sound. What happened next, however, was enough to finally convince the author that this was a level designed for the purpose of messing with the player. A large Bonsai Bill enemy appeared on screen, but with a deranged expression on its face, and with blood dripping from its eye and mouth. It was also positioned in such a way that it would be impossible for a typical player to escape it. Fortunately for the author, since he was playing on an emulator, he was able to turn on a Game Genie cheat code to make himself permanently invincible. Though he turned back and let the so-called Bleeding Bill chase him for a while, so he could get a better look at it. But when he finally decided he'd had enough, and walked through the enemy to kill it, and head back to the right, he soon spotted a message that wasn't there the first 2 times he passed by. I hate you. This message was proof enough to the author that this level was something that players were, at some point, meant to find, but he couldn't figure out the angle. Did the message come from Bowser? From the ghosts? Why did it seem to be written in blood? Eventually, the blind boos stopped appearing, and he found the same I hate you message a second time as a group of big boos appeared. He initially felt happy to see some new enemies, but when he moved forward and turned his back to them, these ghosts actually did start chasing him, which revealed that their faces looked more gleeful and demented than usual, and with an absurd amount of graphical detail in their throats. As this happened, a new bloody message appeared in the dark. Why won't you die? The author waited for the big boos to come near him, making use of his invincibility cheat code so that the enemies would die when they touched him. No matter how the game tried to scare him, the power of cheating would always make him invulnerable to it. After this, creepy things stopped appearing, and he ran down the corridor for a little longer before a pipe on the floor allowed him to move on. The next room was an underwater area, being the first area in the level so far to fit with the whirlpool theme advertised on the overworld. This room gave him a block containing a mushroom, before going on to feature a series of thwomps, enemies known for falling from the ceiling and hitting the floor when the player comes near. These ones, however, were arranged closely together in a long row, and appeared to have no rhyme or reason as to how and when they stomped the ground. They just relentlessly crushed over and over again. They were also covered in blood, presumably from their previous victims, causing the author to refer to them as very successful thwomps. The author slowly walked through this area, so that each and every one of the thwomps would touch him and die, and he guessed that there were close to 30 of them in total. As he did this, he noticed that Mario seemed to slide slightly while walking, the way he would on ice. It seemed like he was slipping on the blood. After the author passed the thwomps, he ended up in a wider corridor that had spikes lining the floor and the ceiling. At first, this seemed fairly normal, and the author even started trying to have a little bit of fun with the hack, but that feeling faded when a bunch of gross, dead Mario sprites appeared, impaled by the spikes. It was at this point that the author began feeling confident in piecing together what was going on. The Mario sprites and the blood underneath the thwomps represented past players, or Mario's previous lives. He believed that it was meant to show the player the consequences of being careless with Mario's fragile life. The author seemed impressed by the work and thought that was put into the creepiness, but the level went from disturbing to outright terrifying when the sprites began floating toward the player. Despite the fact that the invincibility cheat was still enabled, the author refused to let the ghouls touch Mario, so he swam as fast as he could until he reached a purple exit pipe and escaped the room. By the time he reached the exit, there were about 10 of the things nearby. After this, he found himself in an empty corridor, with no enemies, no decorations, and nothing to be afraid of. It was boring, but comfortably so. It gave the author a sense of safety again, that lasted up until he reached the end of the hall, where a boss door awaited, right next to an incredibly weird-looking mushroom. We'll never know what it may have done, because, as the author simply puts it, I didn't touch that shit. So he walked through the door and found himself on a bridge. The background was the usual castle boss background, with the exception of a creepy, shadowy figure watching from one of the windows. The author lost control of the player, and the game turned into a cutscene. Mario looked back and forth around the room for a while, before a familiar face appeared on screen. Luigi. He looked angry, and Mario looked horrified to see him. Luigi spoke. "You thought Koopa worked alone?" The author finally believed he realized the truth of what was going on. Everything that's happened in the games has been the work of Luigi, working with Bowser, out of jealousy of Mario's fame and fortune. As the author explains, "He's always been Mario's second banana, the player 2, the one who doesn't get the princess in these early games. No matter how identical he is to Mario in skill set and ability, and tenaciousness and bravery, at the end of the day, the game is Super Mario Brothers, and he's just the brother." The cutscene continued as Luigi began stomping on Mario. The scene went on like this for a while, causing the author to feel a sense of hopelessness and sorrow, before the scene's twist ending revealed itself. As Luigi was distracted with a victory pose, Mario got back to his feet, took his brother by surprise, and fought back, regaining the upper hand and ultimately knocking Luigi into the lava. As he sank into the fiery abyss, one last cry escaped his lips. "Oh God, no!" echoing the title of the level. The rest of the cutscene showed Mario sitting on the edge of the bridge and crying, before the screen faded to black. The scene gave the author the impression that Luigi's death was for good, and this was reinforced by the fact that the game immediately went back to normal, and he wasn't even able to revisit the mystery level that he had just played. After this, the author continued the game to find the rest of it the same as how he always remembered. The levels were unchanged, and even the final boss was familiar. The one exception was the final image that appears when you beat the game. The once happy family photo type image of Mario, Luigi, and the princess now looked like this. And that's the story of the I Hate You creepypasta. Fans of my channel know that this is usually the part where I dive into other clues and other files related to the story, but this time around, the story is self-contained, and also fairly self-explanatory. Luigi has been secretly working with Bowser out of resentment for his brother. He had been the one responsible for the threatening messages, and the existence of this level was Nintendo's way of secretly telling the audience this story. I'm not sure, however, what the significance is of the boos being blind, or the big boos appearing angrier and deep-throated. The detail I find most interesting is the shadowy figure that appears in the window. Who is that supposed to be? The princess? Bowser? Someone else? It reminds me a lot of the aliens that appear in the background in certain areas of Super Mario Galaxy 2. Could it be breaking the fourth wall to represent the player? Or Nintendo staff members spectating the fight? Or is it just some random thing meant to be creepy for the sake of being creepy? Well, I'll pull back the curtain a bit and say that while I welcome theories on this in the comments, I wouldn't be too surprised if there wasn't any intention behind this. On the day Slimebeast first posted the story, he said in the forums that it was written mainly as a joke, and on his website, he even directly calls it satire. It's not a story that was really meant to be taken seriously, and so most people don't take it seriously. There are a lot of problems with the story, not least of which being that the whole permanent invincibility thing removes a lot of the tension, as well as the reliance on blood. In fact, part of the reason why the story spread around was because of videos riffing on it, such as the one by Retsupre. One Retsupre fan I know, Ersanio, who actually used to be an administrator for SMW Central, released a pretty good ROM hack in 2016 that recreated the story. I recently streamed myself playing it, along with an EXE version that was less good. Okay. Oh, it kills me. Ouija time! Oh, what? I broke it. This is the super paper mark. Oh, geez, what the fuck? Alright, that one got me. The ROM version by Ursan is honestly very nicely done, and while it's mostly accurate to the story, it takes some artistic liberties in ways that make the hack more fun to play. The hallways are much shorter, so it doesn't actually take you 10 minutes to walk through them, and the cutscene at the end of the level has been replaced with an actual boss fight, complete with a health system from Mega Man X. Also, when you touch the mystery mushroom that the author ignored, this happens. Oh. It just kills you. You're... Okay. You're next with the... And the blood! Alright, I wasn't expecting that. Awesome. Also, after finishing the level, we're taken to the end screen immediately, with some eerie music playing in the background. Huh. The music sounds kind of familiar. I wonder what it would sound like if I speed it up and reverse it. Oh my god. This is the scariest thing so far. And that's it for the I Hate You creepypasta. At this point, I've covered the big 3 creepypastas of Super Mario World, and I plan to start branching out soon with other creepy topics, including some things that people have mentioned in the comments. Send in your own requests, and something you're interested in just might be the topic of the next video. Subscribe to stay tuned for the next one, and remember, don't look behind you.